came out in May of 2017, and it's about swamp rat, otherwise known as the koipu or the nutria. It's a rat-like animal that was introduced from South America. There it is. Looks like a very large rat, and it was introduced here to heighten the amount of fur that was available for the fur industry in the 1930s and 40s. Nutria reproduce very, very quickly, and because of that, when they're introduced into an area, there's a lot of them very quickly. And this can cause a lot of environmental problems. They eat wetlands in such a way where they waste a great deal of plant material, up to 90%, because they eat it from the roots. And they reproduce very quickly. We believe that 20 were introduced to Louisiana wetlands, and they became about 20 billion very soon. Now, there's now a bounty program that deals with this, and the problem is under control. There are many fewer nutria than there were, but that reproduction is just astounding. You can see how the problem would occur. Here's a female nutria nursing 2 kids. Again, reproduction very quickly and eating in such a wasteful way so as to turn wetlands into water. There's nutria in its lodge, much like the beaver that the nutria replaced. Back in the day, the beaver was the main source of fur in North America, and once the beaver was wiped out, folks started to look for other fur sources and introduced animals like the nutria. So this was the Great North American Rat Race. During settlement, Western settlement in 1803, we know about the Louisiana Purchase. And then the ranching culture. Resource use became a big deal. This is in the 1920s. We have a gentleman skinning a muskrat. This is after the buffalo were wiped out. We were starting to run out of fur sources to use as a resource. Human beings had gone through seals, buffalo, other animals. So the muskrat was the major market fur in the 1920s in Louisiana. Around the 1930s, nutria were introduced to replace a lot of the muskrat, and then a Division of Wildlife made a market stance and transition from the muskrat to the nutria for economic purposes. The nutria introductions to Louisiana were originally credited to Ned McElhaney. He's the son of the founder of the Tabasco Company. And when you read the book, you're going to see that Ned McElhaney was actually unfairly credited with that, shall we say. Shane K. Bernard's research, he's a fantastic historian with the Tabasco Company, and he's been able to show through research documents that the original tale that really blamed, not credited, but blamed Ned McElhaney for introducing nutria to Louisiana was not quite true. Indeed, there were at least 2 other farmers who did this before him, and he was not fully to blame at all. Many farmers were introducing nutria at the time. 1938 was about when his introductions were, and also there were a few in the 40s, but there were also introductions before that. First nutria farm record that I could see in North America through the research was actually in California by a guy named William F. Frakes, who brought them back from Argentina. And once that occurred, like I said, with muskrat and then the nutria, there was a transition to nutria fur, and excitement over the fur industry continued into the 40s and 50s. Fur was actually fairly popular, not like it is today. It was a big industry. And as this occurred, there was a lot of resource utilization and a lot of continued population of the nutria. This is called an eat-out, and what the nutria have done here is they have wasted the wetlands. They've eaten all of the grass-like material, and they've turned an important wetland ecosystem into water. Now, we need these ecosystems as a buffer against the coastal residencies, and also potentially for a buffer against hurricane. These are valuable environmental places. One solution that's been proposed to the nutria invasion is cooking them up as meat. In my book, I interview a chef with a lot of different recipes for using nutria, almost as if you would use chicken. So he's proposing this as a supplement to the current bounty program, which has them at $4 or $5 a tail, and which has been pretty effective. As he says, if we're going to beat them, let's eat them. And if we're going to kill the nutria, you know, I hate to see the animals killed. I understand that they're causing environmental harm. But if we can do some good with them, hunger is an issue in this country. And we're going to, possibly if we can get over our culture of eating a rat-like animal, if we can do that, this is potentially nutritious meat that's available. And the chef has a lot of recipes on his website. Great guy. I interviewed him right here in Baton Rouge. There have been some trying times recently. Certainly, nutria are not the only reason. Obviously, there have been major hurricanes and also oil spills as well. The nutria certainly don't help. When you add an animal into this environment, it forms a triple kick, a disaster. It's another part of the equation that's been to blame for some of the environmental and economic issues in the area. Before Katrina, there was Hurricane Audrey, and this is Pecan Island. These are nutria getting away from the hurricane waters on Pecan Island. You can see here. You know, a lot of the hurricanes that have come in have actually done some good in taking care of the nutria problem. Obviously, it's been awful for the environment and the economy, but the one possible good news about some of these hurricanes is that they have wiped out some of the nutria and they've come up shore dead on the beach. So that has kept the nutria issue under control. But like I said, not completely. This is still a big deal. And having the nutria there might have potentially, we're not sure about formal research results, but potentially increase the effects of these hurricanes and oil spills. After all, when you destroy the wetlands like that, it's fairly easy to take damaging material and then blow it right into the coast without those buffer wetlands there. The photo sources are from the McElhaney Company. They were incredibly, very cooperative, allowed me on the ground to interview Shinkay Bernard, State Library of Louisiana, Louisiana State University Special Collections, University of Louisiana Lafayette, and also a great photographer who worked on my Utah Prairie Dog book with University of Utah, Lane Bill and Bond. She also wrote the foreword for the book, and you can check out her photography on Facebook and Instagram at lanebillandbond.com. So Swamp Rat, the story of Dixies Nutria Invasion. It's available from University Press of Mississippi. 2017, it's available through Barnes & Noble, Amazon, or through the press or your local bookseller. And also, obviously, today, it's at the tent, and I'll be doing a signing there at 1:15. Also by me, Utah Prairie Dog Life Among the Red Rocks. That was 3 years ago. University of Utah Press, 2014. More about another different type of road, this one out west. Have any questions? Yes?
I just have a comment. When I traveled in Berlin about 6 years ago, I went to the zoo there.
Mm-hmm.
They had an exhibit of nutria.
Right.
Like we do otters here.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised because I saw Louisiana. I knew how we regarded them. But
Right, I went there, I think, 1-2 years ago. Berlin's tremendous, great visit. They have been introduced to areas in Europe. It's not unusual for them to be found here. There were a lot of recent problems in Italy. They've been introduced actually to most continents. There have even been problems in Asia and Africa. So it doesn't surprise me at all that the Netherlands has some low-lying lands that are sort of environmental analogs of our wetlands here at the Gulf Coast. So they've been introduced there. It's been an issue. They actually used to have acclimatization societies where folks would get together and get animals from another continent and breed them and let them out in the wild. This is not obviously not recommended now. We have a better sense of ecology, but back in the day when that wasn't the case, folks did that. We don't know if any of those clubs had anything to do with the nutrient introductions, but the fact is they've been introduced to a lot of places. Pacific Northwest is another one, and Maryland was another low-lying state with that Chesapeake Bay there. Tremendous problems with the nutria, but they've had a very effective eradication program, which has been done a good job keeping them at bay.
So they don't have a disease threat? There's no disease then?
Well, they have little things. There's something called the nutrient itch, where if you're handling them, you can get that. Their major issue that they're causing is not so much the disease. With the prairie dogs that I showed you, the other book, they can carry flea. They're not the prairie dog that carries the flea, the plague. It's the flea that carries it, but they can carry those fleas. We don't see that as much here. The major problem here is wetland damage, and then going back into the 50s and 60s, they were eating crops. Damage to sugar, our sugar industry here, and that was during the sugar industry recovery when, it was the last thing Louisiana needed in the 50s and 60s. And they eat other crops like rice. In Europe, they're eating crops as well. That's the major issue, is the damage to the wetlands.
They don't get sick, they stay healthy and reproduce.
They can get sick, but obviously if they don't, they can reproduce. They're polyestrous, what we call. So in other words, they can reproduce a few times a year, and it's no big deal. I've read cases of one nutria producing 15 kids a year. So if that goes on, nutrient after nutrient, like I said, if 20 were introduced to Louisiana, and that's the documented number that I'm using from what Ed McElhaney wrote, is the 20 pairs that have been documented in the records, but they grew to about 20 million, and it didn't take that long either. You're talking about maybe 2 decades when that occurs. It's unbelievable reproduction if it's unchecked.
So you showed something like a beaver thing. Do they live under the ground too? If they're near a lake, do they make burrows?
What they'll do is they'll have a type of lodge that's almost like a beaver's, and you saw it's kind of halfway in the water and halfway out. So they're semi-aquatic. They go into the water, and they want to come out. They come out. They're on top of the water in their lodge. The wetlands themselves are sort of, it's land, but they're waterlogged. So they're semi-aquatic. They go back and forth.
So generally they wouldn't be living under the ground or burrowing under the ground.
So they don't live like that. They don't do that because they're in a
I think
wetland.
that we found in our property one that was seen to have been severed. I think that's a big, long, sort of a thick tail that
Right.
and gets sort of a little bit pointy at the end, right? It gets small.
Yes,
it's
it
pretty
is.
long.
It's not a flat tail like a beaver.
It's a thick. It's like a tail, and it gets thinner and thinner.
Sounds like it could be.
It's about that big.
Could be. Yeah.
And one time we found half of one, which must have been done to some animal, must have eaten part of it. So that means there must have been one around, and something ate it, but only ate half of it. Like it had cut it in two, cut off the back end, the back legs. What would do that? What animal? There must be a natural.
Could be a muskrat too. I'd have to see him.
I mean, it was quite big. I don't think it would.
Could be a gator got it. And
Oh, there's no gators around Baton Rouge.
okay.
What else would eat a musk?
Not sure. Maybe a hawk got onto it.
It could have been a big bird,
Yeah,
I guess.
know.
But it's a big animal, so whatever it ate it.
Could be human done. It's an animal the size almost a cat. I'm not sure about that, but what you're saying with the reproduction, to top this all off, there's been a lot of alligator exterminations, right? And the book goes into the alligator skin industry, using them for shoes, belts, that type of thing, killing alligators. And the research is debatable as far as whether the alligators would have kept the nutria growth in check. That's not entirely clear, and I go through the conflicting hypotheses in the book, but had we had animals there, had we had alligators there, I don't know, we could have seen what happened. Possibly this might not have been as bad as well. There's no gators there. I'm not sure what they ended up doing.
So the other thing is, I have a daughter in Portland, and have nutria. I've lived in Louisiana. I've never seen what would be, I guess, called a wild nutria. I've never seen one in the wild. But I thought I saw one in Portland, Oregon, in a brief. I visit there every once in a while. So did they come up from California, go way up to Oregon?
Yes, they didn't necessarily come up from there. They've been introduced there. There's a lot of them.
So they'll do okay, even though the weather's colder and everything.
They don't like the weather to be cold as much, but that's a fairly moderate climate.
Yeah.
So they like a warm, humid climate, but they're okay in Oregon and Washington. Both of those states have had issues.
Yeah.
They are low-lying. The climate there is moderate. It doesn't get too much freezing. If it gets like freezing, like interior Midwestern Canada, something like that, for the most part, that's not going to work. Their tails will actually freeze, and they can't deal with that. And that's why a lot of the introductions to places like the Midwest those nutrient populations have not taken root. You don't see those areas with issues. But coastal areas where the temperature is moderate, even if it's not that warm, they have flourished, and that's caused issues for wildlife managers in the Pacific Northwest. Not every introduction we know where it is or where it came from. There's no indication that those populations moved up from California, especially since there hasn't been a nutria site there in a bit. They were probably introduced straight there. Yes?
Well, I wasn't here at the beginning, and maybe you covered it, but they came from Argentina?
Originally, yes.
Do they do damage there? Or, I mean,
That's
I don't
a-
keep up with the
Yeah,
Argentina.
that's a great question, and I made sure to address this in the book. The way that they are there in Argentina, they are in an environment that they are native to, where they belong, where they have lands there that they belong to, that they eat in a sustainable manner. And they also have checkpoints as far as their population with regard to predators and also with regard to native populations and how they hunted them. So they exist there, but they exist there in a little bit more of a sustainable manner. And when you take an animal and you put it into an environment where there's no predatory checkpoint, it's not quite the environment where they fit into naturally. This type of issue that we're going to have, the issue is really the transplant, but in Argentina, no, there's no indication that they cause the level of damage that they caused on the Gulf Coast. It's a great question.
Well, trying to figure out, I guess we can't change our environment to make it.
Well, no, what we have is the bounty system. Like I said, if you're going to do it, I understand that, but let's not leave the bodies to rot. Let's eat them. Let's try to use them for something. The tradition of natural resource utilization started with Native Americans. This is chapter 2 of my book, and they used every part that they could. For instance, of the buffalo. In fact, it was a religious thing that they used all the animal that they could. So if we can eat them, let's do it. Hunger is a problem. This is a food source. It's there. I agree with the chef. I don't think it's a comprehensive solution, but in addition to some of the other things that we're doing, let's do it. The only thing is you don't want to make a market for it such that people start farming them again and putting them back to work, because that's how we got here. So you start eating them, people like it. We don't want to go back to farming them, because part of the way that we got here was people were farming them and then they just released them. I mean, he took too much of the blame, but let's be honest, that's what Mr. McElhaney did.
And then you'd have Peter too.
Right. So let's not do it too much to make that type of market, but let's do it to a point where it's controlled and we can deal with the nutrient that we have. We've done with alligator, we've done with crayfish. We didn't think that those were edible. I guess there's more of a aura to eating a top predator like an alligator. the crayfish, I guess it's sort of like crab. I don't know if we can get over it. It's a food source. We would take care of the problem at the same time. The bounty is working well though, but I'd like to see us use the animal.
And maybe you could use for pet food. There's
It has been used for pet. There's a company that does that. That's not a bad idea. There's a company that does
I mean,
it.
there's a huge number of pets that are taking up a lot of
Yes.
resources.
Yes.
Now, is it true that elephant ears protect, that they don't, if they eat the roots of elephant ears, that this is toxic and they,
If the nutria eat
the plant, the elephant ear plant, that's some of the reasons that around LSU lakes there's, there are elephant ears.
I'd have to look that one up.
Supposedly, it's toxic, you know?
I'd have to-
I had a course in college
Yeah.
about Micronesia,
Yeah.
and the taro root is related to the elephant ear, but it's toxic raw.
Yeah, right,
Maybe
it's toxic.
that's the story.
Yeah, it's supposed to be toxic, so poi is made out of something like an elephant ear, and if you cook it, you can eat it, otherwise it's toxic. And I would
To
say it's more in the
humans,
room, there's been some
to humans.
scientific work that suggests that if you plant elephant ears, then the nutria won't burrow, because they'll eat it and it's toxic, and then that helps control it.
There's scientific research on this.
Well, I talked to someone at LSU that told me that they had done that research. I actually
Oh,
talked
really?
to the person.
It could
And
be in
that's
the
what they
preliminary
said,
stage.
because it's been, I don't know if it's still, I haven't paid attention lately, but around the LSU lake, there was always elephant ears
Really?
planted.
Well, I haven't read that. I'll try to look that up when I get home. I have to look at the study, see what's going on there.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. Thank you very much.